Hello, you're watching the AI Native Telco Summit, part of our year-round DSP Leaders coverage. I'm Guy Daniels, and today's discussion looks at using AIOps for operational efficiencies. Well, AI operations can facilitate end-to-end automation and zero-touch operations, but is it a necessary part of the new cloud-native and AI-native telco model? And what are the challenges that could impact its adoption? Well, to answer these questions and more, I am joined on the program today by Juan Manuel Caro, who is Director of Autonomous Networks at Telefónica, Jason Hogg, GM Asia for Operators at Microsoft, Danielle Royston, CEO and founder TelcoDR and acting CEO Totogi, Mark Gilmour, Chief Technology Officer ConnectiviTree Europe, Beth Cohen, SDN Product Strategies with Verizon, and Roman Ferrando, Principal Analyst AI for Appledore Research. Hello everyone, it's good to see you all. Thanks so much for taking part in this discussion. So what are AI ops and ML ops? And more to the point, how are they relevant to telcos, especially with regards to the ongoing work on network automation? Danielle, I wonder if we could start by hearing your views on this first.
I'm so glad you asked, Guy, and as the public cloud evangelist for telco, I think one of the key things that we need to understand about AI and ML ops is the need for massive amounts of data. And I think when I start to think about the changes that are coming with AI, we really need to think about where that data resides. Today, it's mostly on-premise, trapped, siloed in vendor databases that don't really talk to each other, don't have a common data model, and certainly are not in the public cloud. And so my question back to the panel and everyone is, where's the data residing? I think there's a couple of telcos in the world that are positioned to start to really use AI and ML at scale. Certainly AT&T with Azure, Vodafone's big project with Google Cloud to move all their data into the public cloud. Probably DT in Germany has been doing a lot of work with the public cloud and their data. Certainly BT is beginning to talk in a real way about moving all of their data into the public cloud. And so I think this is where the real work lies, is breaking them out of these silos, out of on-prem systems, and moving them to the public cloud.
Yeah, thanks very much, Danielle. And I'm sure we're going to hear more about the importance of data and the quality of data and access to data as we go through this discussion, because we've been hearing it yesterday on our AI Native Telco Summit as well. But let me first of all go across to Juanma. We're looking at AI ops. Well, what exactly is it? And how relevant is it to telcos?
Okay, I think for telcos, this is a must. No? This is really to leverage on AI to streamline our operations, from the monitoring of the network to the root cause analysis to the healing, and then make the machine learn so it can be better the next time. And this is a must for telcos. It's not only for efficiency. We have been pushing very much in automation in the last decades, I would say. And I think Telefónica and other telcos, we are at a good level of automation. But the world is changing. The services are more and more demanding and are going to be, you talk about, you name it, connected car or VR or AR or whatever thing. And then we are changing the networks toward a more softwareized and virtualized networks, with the cloud, there's public cloud or private cloud. And for that, it is a need. Now we have to change in agility. It has to be faster. You have to cope with the services and with the speed of IT. We have to improve quality to compete better. We have to make the network more intelligent to be able to cope with all these cloud instances and real-time decisions, slicing, all that kind of things. So for this, I think AIOps is a must in the photo of the future telco, because if not, we are not going to be able to really operate these networks that are getting better, are getting virtualized, open, but also more complex. So that's why I think this is in our agenda for sure.
Great. Thanks, Juan. That's a very clear endorsement of the need for AI ops. Looks like a lot of our guests want to respond and comment on this question. So, Beth, let me next come across to you and your views on AI ops.
So yes, I agree with Hamar that AIOps is critical to our future. And I would say there's really two flavors of AIOps that you really need to take into consideration. There's the one on the operations side of things that's specifically related to not some of the network performance, but how the network is monitored and managed. So that's the AIOps, which includes natural language processing and the sort of those further automation of the operations side of the house. The other side is the AIOps that is actually probably the more exciting, but also the more definitely more futuristic, which is the machine learning aspect, where it is applied to the network itself and to create better self-healing, allow it to take application awareness to that next level. I will take issue with it needing to be in the cloud, or rather into the public cloud. The public cloud, to me, not to knock it, obviously, most of the telcos use public clouds in some way. But it's a platform. At the end of the day, it's a platform. And where the data resides, it doesn't really matter. Yes, there is a vast amounts of data that need to be processed, but I don't think that it necessarily is improved by being in the public cloud. That's a business decision based on costs and management and total cost of ownership. That's, I don't think, is directly related to the data itself.
Okay, thanks very much, Beth, and a clear differentiation there, between the two aspects of AI ops. Mark, let's come to you next for your thoughts here.
Thanks, Guy. I'm in agreement with my operator colleagues on the panel here about the kind of the need for AI in operations, particularly around anomaly detection, alarm correlation, and operational analytics as that comes in more and more complex networks. I think the more layers you add into that, the more virtualization, things like that come in. I think those sorts of techniques become extremely valuable. I'm with Beth on the subject of the public cloud. I think there is a place. And I also think we can do AI ops. We can operate operationally in both a public or a private cloud environment. I think it'll depend upon the need to access data. Obviously, it is easier to access data in a public cloud environment, by setting up those accesses, etc. So I think that there is the benefit. I think the other side of the use of machine learning and AI within an operational environment is also in the opportunity to streamline some of those processes or provisioning or network discovery sort of applications. So not just in terms of anomaly or fault detection, but some in terms of preventative maintenance, those sorts of things, but also sorting out the proactive network solutions or network services and optimizing on the networks. And I think that's where some of these techniques become interesting for us as we develop our operations model.
Thank you very much, Mark, and some very interesting and compelling use cases and ways to apply AIOps there. I think Jason wants to come in, but first of all, let me go across to Roman for your views on AIOps and telcos.
Thank you. I don't have any option other than just agree with the rest of the panel. I think the complexity we face operating the networks today forces us to be much more proactive when it comes to identify problems and diagnostic where the problem is. So every single minute that there is a problem in the network and we're not able to identify it and detect it, it's affecting our customers. And that is impacting operators in different ways. So if you put that together with the complexity of the network today, you have no option but be much more proactive. And the only way to do that is using data analysis or AI. That is something that is not new. So we've been doing this for some time already, but there are a few challenges. I'm sure we'll have the chance to talk about that. But 90% of the code that we have in developed, ML code, to put that to the network, never reached the live network. And that was a problem. So long story short, we have no option other than just put AIOps to work and do it in a proper way, be able to update the models when they become obsolete, being able to deal with concepts like drift, accommodate the new reality, and be much more proactive. That is something that is a must. We definitely need that.
Yeah, very clear. It's really becoming clear that the need for AIOps within telcos in the operations. Thanks very much, Roman. Let's go across to Jason and for your views, Jason.
No, thank you. I think one of the things that's sort of clear when you talk about AIOps is it does mean sort of slightly different things to different people. It's sort of at Microsoft, what we sort of look at AIOps as is really sort of the modern approach for managing complex distributed systems such as Azure and 4G and 5G networks that telcos are running. These are some of the most complex networks in the world. It just wouldn't be possible for Azure to have actually scaled without us fully embracing some of what sort of Danielle was talking about, like taking all of the data from Azure, analyzing it, understanding sort of how the systems were running, and then sort of applying that to actually how we actually configured and sort of deploy the actual technologies as well. And so within the Azure for Operators team, a big part of what we're doing is taking exactly the same technologies that we use for running one of the largest networks in the world and making them available to operators. Both the ability to actually ingest and analyze, get insights from, understand the health of the network, understand quality of customers' experiences, and then sort of update and configure the networks based on that insights, and actually enabling those same capabilities now for operators to use as they actually embrace their sort of cloud-native journey as they move from 4G to 5G and so forth. And so data ingestion, analysis, AI running in the cloud, AI running in the edge, all of these sorts of things are a big part of the solutions or the services that Microsoft's bringing to bear. I think on the note of the public cloud, one thing to keep in mind, I think, is it is possible, obviously, to do inferencing at the edge, and there's certainly cases in the RAN where that's absolutely necessary, where you've got sort of less than a millisecond or something like that, where you're actually trying to draw insights from your data. But there are sort of massive advantages to the cloud, just in terms of scale, agility. It also provides a natural sort of function for actually just integrating, taking different data sets and allowing those silos to be broken down, sort of again. Similar to what sort of Danielle was talking to. So there is a lot of advantage in actually getting the data into the public cloud like Azure and actually allowing the actual AIOps infrastructure to help sort of coordinate your network from the cloud.
Great, Jason. Thanks so much indeed for those comments. And let's just wrap this up by quickly going back to Danielle for some comments on what we've heard, I guess, from other panelists.
Well, we always love a panel that's contentious and there's a lot of debate, but just going back to the public cloud and definitely what Jason was saying, one of the reasons why I'm advocating for the public cloud is not just to move the data there, but the key is you need specialized chips to build your machine learning models, your natural language processing or LLMs. You need a ton of horsepower, and the public cloud providers have the specialized chips. They have the LLMs out there for you to build. I don't think it makes sense for a telco to build that themselves in a private cloud. And so you're going to be training and using inference in the public cloud. You need your data to be there too. And so that's going to start to pull a lot of these applications up into the public cloud because of all of this advanced AI that we're doing. I mean, I'm not talking about just basic automation and anomaly detection. I'm talking about the more advanced stuff that really has taken over the world in the last 12 months. And you're going to need the chips that are at AWS or at Google. You need ChatGPT over at Microsoft and Azure. And that's all in the public cloud.
Okay, thanks very much, everyone. Well, let's just move on. AIOps, how can telcos leverage this to reduce their opex and achieve the all-important network efficiency gains? We hear so much about the need to improve network efficiency at the moment. Juanma, perhaps we could start by asking you as an operator, how can you leverage AIOps to do this?
Yeah, I think AIOps is the perfect tool, no? And I probably in the future, when this is everything autonomous or level 5 of TM for autonomy, the network will be self-aware and do things alone. No, but I would like to focus on today. Now, we in Telefónica, for example, have more than 100 use cases with AI that we use across the life cycle of the network and across our operations, from the beginning of the process of Azure to the end. And for example, even before the process begins, or even before you monitor the network, we use it to do predictive maintenance, for example. As we are getting all this data and trying to predict faults before they even happen. And this works well. Of course, not for the 100% of the problems. If the cable is going to be cut tomorrow, who knows? But there are a lot of things that these techniques and these algorithms can raise to you 24 hours before they happen. So you can change your schedule in the field, and pass from an urgent travel ticket that is expensive to a more planned travel ticket for next day. Things like that are possible and are real and are working. And we are, of course, improving quarter by quarter the accuracy and extending to more parts of the network. Another one is monitoring. And here, another thing from myself is, I think AI is very good for a lot of things, but it is not needed for everything. And the network at some point is quite deterministic. You have a problem in your equipment, it raises an alarm. You know the problem, you solve it, and most of these things are already automated, and it works very well in rule-based or expert-based. But being able to do anomaly detection and really understand these green light network scenarios, where there's a problem but everything looks good, there is no alarm, and here with anomaly detection and other techniques, we are now able to really understand that something wrong is happening and start the root cause analysis before. Maybe in the past, we had to wait until the customers start to call, and then somebody realizes in the knock, something must be happening because customers are complaining. So again, this can save you a lot of time of a lot of people looking at the different parts of the networks, as we are quite structured in telcos in silos, not from access or core or transport. A lot of experts looking for something, and then you can really streamline operations and save opex and save time. And there are a lot of use cases in root cause analysis and then in closing the loop as we progress. And as I think this is far from being real as a whole, I think we are progressing very well. Another thing I wanted to comment is AIOps is very good, but I think it's not only to solve the problems or to really be able to operate the network. That we in Telefónica, we have this project, it's called Autonomous Network Journey, that is driving all our transformation. We have a couple more things here. For example, energy savings. So we want to build the most efficient network in the world. Customer experience. These are things that I am responsible for corporate operations, and I'm also responsible for customer experience in the network, for energy savings in the network. All this is there in the same DNA, and AI is helping us a lot really to reduce energy consumption across the network or to improve customer experience, understanding better the experience of the customers towards the network KPIs. So I think there are hundreds of use cases, as I say. I don't want to talk for 4 years here, but there's a lot of things to do to improve opex, not only opex, but customer experience and other parts that are key to our network performance.
Thanks, Juanma. And, we've already had quite a few advanced viewer questions in on this topic, and a number of questions are asking, what are the use cases? What are the clear, obvious use cases? And as you say, there's so many of them. Right, Beth, let's come across to you on this question of how telcos can use AIOps to achieve network efficiency gains.
As Hamar said, there's plenty of use cases, and I see that we're increasingly using them and incorporating them into our networks. Certainly, energy savings is a big one. But more importantly, I think one of the areas that our monitoring tools have trouble with is the intermittent anomalies, I'll say. Those are the ones that happen, every couple days. There might be some weird intermittent thing going on. And that's where I think the AI ops tools and the data analysis can really pick up on these things. I mean, because the troubleshooting of those types of things is extremely difficult, extremely frustrating, and it can be very frustrating for our customers as well. So I think this is an area where the massive amounts of data and the data analysis can really pick up on those sort of odd anomalies that are intermittent, and really allow us to address them more holistically. And, operationally wise, obviously we've been automating, our services and our operations forever. And this is, I see it as allowing us to take the automation to sort of the next level, where, ideally we want to prevent the anomalies from even happening. Yes, the first step is anomaly detection and then addressing the anomaly. But the next step in AIOps is anticipating that their anomaly may happen and avert it so that it doesn't happen at all. I'll use an example with hardware, where hardware has a life cycle span, and we need to be able to look to see if the hardware is starting to get out of spec. And if it is starting to get out of spec, that's going to indicate there's possible, potential for failure going forward. So therefore, we can be proactive about replacing that before it fails. So those are the kinds of things where AI can really help. Because you need large data sets over large amounts of equipment to detect those types of anomalies, and look at what does it look where before it fails, so that we can address it before it's a problem.
Yeah, thanks very much, Beth. As you say, being proactive is a great application of AI and AIOps here. Roman, do you concur with what Beth was saying there? I was quite interested to hear what you were saying about the intermittent anomalies, for example.
Absolutely. So the first thing to say is that we don't need AI for everything and anything. So there are many problems in the network we can identify very easily, and we don't have a problem with that. So the real problem is when those problems, they're not so easy to identify because they are on and off, and because they are very subtle, and sometimes they are affecting customers, and they can be very frustrating for customers and subscribers, but also very labor intensive when it comes to identify the root cause. I'm talking about configuration problems or improper configuration and that kind of things. So identifying those things is probably one of the main applications for AIOps. Anomaly detection was mentioned a few times already. Anomaly detection can be quite complex and quite useful. I mean, identifying the anomaly and why something is abnormal can give you a lot of hints about where the problem is. And that means the amount of hours that people at the NOC or the SOC, they can just save because they have a lot of information of the problem in earlier stages. Otherwise, they can spend hours just trying to identify where everything started, right? So, of course, everything starts with anomaly detection. If we can tie those anomalies to problems down the road, this particular type of anomaly is going to evolve on this. We have a lot of information in order to avoid that problem. And all those things can only be done using AIOps. Okay, it's not for everything, but it's extremely useful for that kind of problems.
Yeah, absolutely, Ram. Thank you very much. And just echoing what we heard earlier there, AI is good for many things, but not necessary for absolutely everything. Mark, what's your views here and how you see AI ops helping with efficiency gains, for example?
Well, I think we've covered the anomaly detection side of it pretty well. So I would add about performance improvement. I think that's another area. I'm not sure we called it AI in the past, but certainly the using data models to foresee degradation in optical networks, for example, or reaching into that margin that you would leave for that fiber degradation and optical degradation over the years allows you to get better performance, improve efficiencies out of an optical network, for example. So it's using those sort of data models to expand our performance capabilities. I can think of another example of utilizing performance metrics, analyzing against those performance metrics. There's no fault in the network as such. There's no anomaly as such. but using those performance metrics, analyzing against those to then be able to put in place deterministic routing, for example, or performance-based routing algorithms. These are all algorithms that are. Danielle made an interesting observation about the localized AI models, if you wish, that can be used in a local environment versus the large-scale generative AI that she also talked about, which probably is better suited to the public cloud environment. But then not the operational functions are that big. We don't need to boil the ocean, which requires that large-scale compute and capability that you would find in the public cloud, that scale that is needed. So I also believe then that it makes sense to right-size your language learning models, to make sure that they are, if we're talking about generative AI, and I think this is still an evolving area for us, but right-sizing those makes them more efficient, makes them more accurate as well in that. So I don't need a vast, massive language learning model that is picking up on everything that's going on in the world. If I'm purely focused on routing across my network, for example, or a customer coming to us to put out a list of parameters in native language as such, and that being translated then into a service description or a service request into that. So there are differing levels and points to the whole implementation of using AI, using machine learning in an operational environment, a production environment.
Yes, very interesting, Mark. Thanks very much. And as you say, the Gen AI sector in particular is updating every single day. There's new things every week. It's completely different, and the advancements are fantastic. Danielle, let's come across to you on this question about using AIOps to achieve network efficiency gains.
Yeah, and I really wanted to focus on the part of your question about really seeing those opex savings and really approaching this question more from the business side and less from the use cases side. But what we're trying to do internal at my companies at Totogi, and certainly where I'm seeing telcos, is looking across all the big cost centers, the big areas of spend, and how can you apply AI to that. And a really good example is the call center, right? Where customers are calling in with issues. You have a vast amount of data from years of call center history, from answers that have been written by humans. So that's a really great learning model that you can throw against an LLM. And can we take the call center cost and cut it in half by pushing down easy answers to be handled by AI, LLMs that can even, I just saw on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it now, the ability for someone to do a voice call and have it answered by AI, and it feels as real as a human interaction. And going against the knowledge base and old incidents and how we solved this before to get to a really quick resolution. And we know customers and NPS within support report greatest satisfaction when it's a one question, one interaction to get to a resolution. And so when you look at that vast spend in a call center, can we improve productivity where we're solving tickets in half the time or a quarter of the time? And then taking those humans and, again, you can release them, which is obvious OPEX savings, but can we take those humans and now train them to work on the problems that only humans can do and redeploy those resources into areas of investment within the telco? And that's how you're going to start to see that OPEX savings. It's really hard to save money on the network or in hardware. Those are like sunk costs and CapEx, and I really don't know the models behind the operations of that. But where you're going to see OPEX savings, I think, is probably people, right? And I'm going to say it, like, everyone's afraid that AI is going to replace you. I'm like, it's going to replace you if you don't know how to use AI. It's not going to outright replace you. But if you learn how to use AI and you use it to your advantage, it enhances the human effort, and you can have that 10x impact that everyone's seeking from all their employees. And so I think that's going to be the best way to get OPEX savings. just kind of looking at it from the pure business side of the question, Guy.
Yeah, okay. Thanks so much, Danielle. As you said, the question was looking at not just the network efficiency gains, but also the opex savings as well. And that's a really important component here. I do want to get through some more questions, but let's get some quick feedback from, first of all, Roman, and then we'll go across to Mark. But Roman first.
Yeah, sure. The gains that we can get is actually, I'm sorry for bringing bad news, but it's hard to say. And the reason for that is because we operate in a very reactive way. So we only acknowledge there is a problem once the problem is very evident, and we have some static thresholds that have been passed, but we don't really know how long that problem is going to run in the network, and that's something that it's difficult. It's difficult to know because we have many problems and really depends on many different factors. So we know for sure the gains are there if we identify the problems in earlier stages. But how long we can identify problems and what type of problems we can identify, that is something that we do not have a strong answer for that. And that is one of the challenges when it comes to deploying those models in real environments, right?
Great. Thanks very much, Roman. Mark, I'll come across to you and then we'll bring Jason in. But Mark.
Just coming back on what Danielle was saying there about the opex saving in people, and as a relatively new entrant into the market, we've actually baked into our resourcing plan that we can operate at a lower human capacity, capability, I suppose, or a number of people coming into our operations team in a traditional fault finding sort of approach. We're taking the approach that actually it's a combination of human and AI. So I don't know if that's human assisted AI or AI assisted humans. Not entirely sure which way around is the right term to use, but basically that technology, that automation allows us then to do more with the set amount of people, that builds into our business plan, so that we don't have to kind of throw lots and lots of people into that in order to try and make the system work. So that's actually a key part of our business strategy to utilize these technologies coming along to make our people more efficient in that, not to overwork them, but to actually make them more focused in the areas that they can. Tasks that can be taken over by automated processes, whether that's an AI-driven or other processes, great, that's fantastic. It allows our people to then be focused in customer-facing sort of approaches, developing that sort of piece that needs that human interaction, that human touch. But I don't see it as replacing. I do agree with Danielle that it's a cooperation piece between technology and people on that. So I just wanted to bring back on that point that Danielle made.
Great, thanks for sharing, Mark. Well, let's go across to Jason to wrap up this question on OPEX and efficiency.
Absolutely. I mean, lots of fantastic points raised, by the way. I mean, when I sort of work with customers, operators, sort of one of the things I sort of observe is that they're typically in sort of one of three stages of adoption of AIOps. The first is sort of what Roman and sort of Juan were sort of referring to earlier on, where there may be issues that are surfacing that they're actually not aware of, that you may have actually found out by a customer complaining or by sort of going to Twitter and sort of seeing that there's an outage or something like that. So the first stage is actually helping get better at being sort of reactive. Then with sort of at that reactive stage, you then want to move to proactive, where you're trying to actually determine, hey, this issue occurred in the past, want to make sure it doesn't happen again. And then sort of obviously to predictive and some of the scenarios that Mark was talking about, sort of looking for failures in devices in the network, those sorts of things. As you move to reactive, I think from an efficiency perspective, what you see from an operations team perspective anyway is the ability to actually reduce the time it takes to actually mitigate an issue. You know, what we saw is taking days, sometimes weeks, to actually, first of all, isolate where the issue is, identify what the issue is, and then sort of mitigate can take an awful long time without having all of the full understanding of the network and the ability to actually correlate insights across outputs from different network functions. Then as you want to move towards proactive, I mean, this is where large language models are just going to have a massive impact on operations teams, on customer support teams, as Danielle was talking about. And I think one of the things that's really key there to keep in mind is it's still about knowledge. And it's a lot of the operations teams, the customer support teams that have that knowledge. So the key will be to actually work out how to actually take these technology and have these people start to curate the knowledge in such a way where you can basically have the knowledge sort of fed back into a large language model. We've just released something called Copilot for Operator Insights, which is all about sort of helping operations teams develop these knowledge bases and enrich them. And over time, they will basically make the teams much, much more effective and productive. And those are sort of some of the techniques, in addition to sort of what was already described, that I think will actually help greatly increase the efficiency of networks that have been operated.
Thanks so much, Jason, and thanks everyone for your responses to that question. I've got a quick question here because I'd like to tie in this summit to our previous summit on Cloud Native. And Beth, quick question for you perhaps, because you were on the Cloud Native Telco Summit as well last month. How, in fact, does AIOps fit within Telco's Cloud Native transformation plans? Is there a correlation between the two here?
They're parallel tracks, I would say. Cloud native comes first. That's at this point, I would say, very much tactical rather than strategic, in the sense that it's already strategic and we just have to do it. And I think most telcos are pretty far down the path of being cloud native, or at least cloud native to a certain extent. I think there's still some work to be done in terms of some of the SDN services. Some of them have been cloudified, some of them have not. But we're definitely down the path. We definitely defined what needs to be done. I would say the AI piece, which is a companion, if you will, is not as far along. I know we've been talking extensively on this panel about the operations side, which there's quite a bit on that side that has been done. The network piece is still definitely a work in progress. Right now, I'm working with the LFN organization. We're doing some strategic planning, and one of the things we're looking at is how can the open source community bring in and help drive development of AI for the telcos and for the telecommunication industry in general. And one of the areas that I think has been holding things back is there's not a common set of data. I won't even take that. There's not even a common set of understanding of what the data is. And I think that's an area where the open source community can really help with that. Because, each telco has their own ideas, each vendor has their own ideas. And if we can at least have some common understanding, I think we can move forward on developing tools and move the AI ops closer to reality.
Thanks very much, Beth. And that really leads us nicely to our next question, which I think will probably be our final question for this panel. It's an important question as well. What are the obstacles to successfully implementing AI ops within a DSP? And also, what extra burden does this place on data management throughout the organization? And in fact, we can kind of also add to this, really, is it sufficiently viable? Can it replace our legacy processes and systems? And Mark, I'd like to start off with canvassing your views on this.
Thank you, Guy. Data integrity, I think, is the biggest obstacle for us, because that's the starting point. It's the foundation. Any of the automation models, AI models, call it what you will. They're based upon the integrity of the data going in. We kind of skirted around the issue in some of the earlier questions, but I think that is pretty much one of the key obstacles. But it's it's more of a hurdle. We can jump it. We can do that. It's not a showstopper. So I mean, it's something that in my role started in this as we're a new venture and moving forward, is to make sure then that all of our processes are digitalized from day one. That includes those manual processes. So that there is a clear source of data coming in from which then these models and these data sources or these data outputs can then be used. So I think that is the first part. And to your second part of your question, are they viable? Yes, I think in stages. I think I think in telecom we're somewhat known for taking baby steps and not giant leaps, and I think that can be frustrating to other parts of the technology industry that come and work with telecom. So I think yes, in some of those baby steps, in terms of what would be the traditional sense of AIOps, the anomaly detection, operational analytics, that sort of thing. Yep, that's viable. I think some of the more interesting, groundbreaking use cases, is it viable for today? I think I'll let Beth answer that question. I think she'll have some view on that. But I think there's more learning to be done on that. For myself, I'm interested in understanding about the zero knowledge piece, so that maybe the use of the public cloud can become more safer. Safer is not the right word. I can't think of the right word now, but more useful for me and my organization, for example.
Great. Thanks, Mark. You're right about baby steps. I think telcos invented that phrase. It looks like we all want to come in and comment on this final question. So first of all, let me go up to Juan, and we'll start with you.
Okay. I think data is a big challenge, and we have commented. Another one I would like to highlight is also what we call the new ways of working. I think it is not just you buy a tool, put it there, and then it solves all your problems from day one. This is really a transformation of the way we do things in telco in the past. Now we are very much structured, like plan, build, operate, and then by transport, access, core, or whatever it is, IT and networks. So we are really moving towards a thing that is network plus IT, that is really DevOps. You have to use all these techniques, AI, that's not obvious to anybody. Reskilling is massive, and we are doing massive reskilling across our operations, but it's not enough. You have to hire talent and really these skills to be able to use these techniques to the best. The talent market is hard, as you all know. We're a 100,000 people company, 99 plus years old, across 10 plus countries. And we have to change completely the way we have been managing networks the last 100 years, I would say. And I think that's another thing. Now we are doing a lot of efforts and putting all this knowledge, and as was said before, this is a step-by-step movement, but changing our ways of working from the thing that worked very well in the past with our traditional networks towards these more softwareized, open, cloudified networks, and being able to leverage AI in-house and do things and understand them. I think that's another challenge I wanted to bring onto the table.
Yeah, thanks very much for those. I'm glad you brought up skills as well, because we're certainly reading about a surge in demand for AI engineers in particular, who can understand and apply this technology. Danielle, let's come across to you for your comments, please.
Yeah, thanks, Guy. I just wanted to jump in and add to what Juan was saying, that the biggest obstacle is going to be the humans. People are going to see this new technology come into their groups. They're going to be initially threatened. You're going to have a third of the people who just will fight it. You're going to have a third of the people that will try but not be good at it. And there's going to be a third that really adopts it and runs with it. And you really want more of that top group. And you got to be really careful with the negative actions that you take in terms of seeing those productivity gains and then reducing the group and doing layoffs or redundancies. And so I'm now going to put on my HR hat here. And as an HR advisor, I would tell the telco execs to implement it, make it really exciting, publicize the wins that you're getting with AI, the productivity improvements, like I said before on a previous answer, redeploy people into a different area of the telco before you start going after those savings right away, because the AI will be associated with the negative actions. So be really careful about that. And in terms of your vendors can really help you, right? You really want to select vendors that are moving towards the public cloud. I think it's not enough to be cloud native. I think you need to have systems that are super open so they can start to use the language models of the public cloud, the chips of the public cloud, get your data into different databases so you can start to really use it. And so it's not going to be enough to be in a Kubernetes container anymore. You really need to be public cloud native, which is obviously what I'm always advocating, and certainly how Totogi is building software. So you have a real cultural challenge and change management to get those humans really excited about the AI coming, and then you'll start to see all these great benefits that we've been talking about.
Thank you very much, Danielle. And Beth, what about the potential obstacles and, as Mark said earlier, the viability of AI ops?
We're definitely still in the beginning stages. And I'll use an example of, ChatGTP. I teach security at the college level. And I will tell you, pretty soon after ChatGTP got launched, I started getting papers from my students that had been clearly not written by them. And I would say, not to say that ChatGTP isn't very good at certain things. It is not good at writing college essays. I'll say that. And let me apply that to the network. We've talked about the operations side, and I think there's been a lot of good things that the AI can really apply and help with. Network performance tuning, that is very tricky because there's a lot of bias. We talk about AI, having bias, particularly like facial recognition is the classic example. But there's bias in the network too. So you have to be careful about what the data is. Does it have built-in bias? And I think the answer is yes. And so are we ready to wholesale rely on our AI algorithms to return the right answer and do the right thing? At this point, I would say absolutely not. However, we are in the stage where what we need to do is we need to test the AI algorithms against the operational efficiencies that are done manually, and see, does this algorithm work, or do we get actually a better way to think of it is, do we get an expected outcome? Do we get an improvement compared to what happens in real life? And that's the area that I think that's the level that we're at in terms of the network performance AI applications. Operations, as we've discussed, are much further along, but the network performance piece still has a long way to go. And as I mentioned earlier, and several other people have mentioned, just the fact that our data is, we don't even have a common data model to apply these algorithms. So until we get that, we're not going to be able to really optimize as we should be able to.
Thanks very much, Beth. Coming back to data again, isn't it? Jason, would you like to come in and comment on the potential obstacles to successfully implementing AI ops in telcos?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, again, lots of great points raised. I mean, I think going back to sort of one of the early questions, I mean, the adoption of cloud native and 5G disaggregations just sort of makes the networks more complex to manage than they have been in the past. Means new skills are required. Beth and Mark sort of talked about data quality, lack of standards. That's making it hard for the industry to actually evolve sort of in a sort of more in an efficient way than it would otherwise. I think Juan raised great points sort of about sort of we've got to sort of think about new ways of working. And I'll sort of come to that in a second. And then Daniel's sort of talking about, hey, people could be threatened by this journey as well. And then one of the points Mark made that was sort of about is AI a tool or are we a tool of AI? And I think undoubtedly Microsoft's position there is that AI is there for people to actually use to actually help them be more efficient in their jobs. And that's one of the reasons we've chosen this co-pilot term for many of the actual integrations of LLMs into technology. We see it as a tool that makes people more efficient. But at the end of the day, it's still people checking in code. It's still people sort of signing off in a config change before it's deployed, those sorts of things. One of the largest sort of areas that I think operators need to focus on is there's lots of incredible areas where we can actually apply new technologies like AIOps. But the key has got to be, I think, in addition to getting people excited about it and embracing change, it's about trying not to just automate existing processes. I think if you sort of think about how sort of deployments occur right now, it's one thing to actually make a single instance of an NF sort of deploy sort of faster, but I think the key is how do you make the entire network deploy faster with multiple NFs, for example, being able to actually deploy in parallel. That's just sort of one example. So I think the thing that sort of urges for people to actually really look at this as a transformative change for the industry that allows a decrease in the amount of sort of focus on technology and obstacles that have actually occurred in the past, and then start to think about how does this incredible amount of data, curated data, knowledge, information allow us to then start focusing on new opportunities, new business opportunities, new products, better products, competitive products, new areas of investment. That's the real journey, and that's where I think things get super exciting. And that, again, was exactly the same sort of journey that Azure was on in the early days. It was about troubleshooting better. Then it was about managing our costs, building out the network cost effectively. But where we're at right now is we use the data to actually really understand how people are using our service, build new offerings, and basically make sure those are best in market. And that's exactly what the journey that we see the partners that we're working with in the operator space as being on, and we're excited to actually help them on that journey.
Thanks so much, Jason. It's really getting interesting at the moment. I can't wait to come back in 12 months' time and see how far we've progressed. In a moment, I'll come across to Roman to wrap things up. But Danielle, let's have just a quick comment from you, because I think you wanted to make a response there.
Yeah, just one thing, which I think, what Beth was saying, and Jason as well, is that humans will try to intercept the answer and override the AI answer. And so there's going to be a real journey in terms of, crawl, walk, run, to learning how to trust that the AI answer is actually better than your intuition or gut, or maybe even your knowledge. It's synthesizing so much more data much more quickly than you can. And so that's going to be a real fight as we roll out AI into the telco organization, resisting the urge to override or not trust it and not let it just run and do its job. That's where you're going to start to get those efficiencies, is building that trust and really using it.
Yeah, and that could be really difficult. Jason, just quickly back to you, and then Roman, I promise we'll come to you in a second. Jason.
Yeah, and just to be clear there, certainly wasn't saying that humans will be tempted to overrule the AI. What we are saying, though, is we should look at AI as a tool that actually allows people to be more efficient. I do think over time we'll start to actually see certain patterns evolve where we can basically say, hey, this type of scenario with this type of data, with this recommended sort of configuration change, deployed using safe deployment practices, we can actually do that with full automation, maybe without sort of a person. That's the sort of full closed loop sort of experience that we've all sort of talked about and heard about. But I think it's really sort of still viewing the AI as a tool for people to actually be managing as opposed to anything different. So.
Absolutely. Thanks very much for clarifying that, Jason. And Roman, you've been very patient. So let's wrap this panel discussion up with your thoughts on the potential obstacles to successfully implementing AIOps, and also, perhaps the viability as it stands today.
Well, I think most of them has been already discussed. We have a number of them. Some of them are technical, some of them are more cultural and human. But definitely data is the main thing. I mean, without data, there's no model. So there's no point to talk about AI without data. Okay. And Beth pointed out, we don't even have a unified data model. We have some attempts in the standardization body to create those things and some tools that we can all use and understand each other. But the reality is that it's not widely adopted yet. So that is definitely one obstacle. But we have more than that. Ways of working, absolutely. And there's one thing that normally is overlooked, is that statistical truths are not necessarily network insights. So the model is basically a statistical tool. It's going to provide statistical insights. It's not necessarily applicable to your network. And when we talk about anomaly detection, I can tell you, majority of anomalies, statistically speaking, you will find in your network. It means absolutely nothing from the operations point of view. So that is an additional challenge, of course. And I think it's going to be a journey. I think a few things has to change, also from the cultural resistance and ways of working. And from the technical point of view, I'm pretty sure we will get there, and we will be able to deploy those models in live environments. But it's going to take some time. So are we ready to do it? Theoretically speaking, yes. In practical terms, it's going to take some time.
Yeah, I'm afraid you're right there, Roman. I'm sure of it. I'm sure that's the consensus as well. But we will do it, but it's going to take time. Thank you very much, but we must leave it there for now. We will continue this debate during our live Q&A show later today. For now, though, thank you all for taking part in our discussion. And if you are watching this on day 2 of our AI Native Telco Summit, then please send us your questions and we'll answer them in our live Q&A show, which is coming up very soon. And don't forget to view the other panel discussions and keynote interviews in this year's summit. Here is the agenda for today, and the full schedule of programs and speakers can be found on the TelecomTV website. And please download our exclusive AI native research report from my colleague Ray Lemaitre. For now though, thanks for watching and goodbye.